prediction number 6, Henry. It's all to do with the ETF share class. A lot of noise in the media on ETF share classes, and we're predicting that the uptake and adoption and growth of ETF share classes is significantly below that noise in the market. Why do we think this?
I think it's natural for people with an existing UCITS infrastructure to look at that infrastructure and say, let's utilize this for our market entry into the ETF. While we welcome the recent regulatory developments on ETF share classes, specifically getting rid of the naming convention was a welcome development, made it more viable for people to look at ETF share classes as a route to market. There are still hurdles, I would say, in terms of using your existing infrastructure and adding an ETF to an existing fund construct. And we don't think it's the panacea that we have seen maybe in the media and some industry commentary around the ease to get into the ETF market via the ETF share classes. There are a number of considerations, hurdles, if you will, in terms of using your existing infrastructure and adding an ETF share class to that UCITS construct. The main ones, I would say, first and foremost, the one that stops people at the first hurdle will be tax. There is a question mark around eligibility for the Irish and US double tax treaty, that 15% withholding tax on US dividends versus the 30% in the fund construct, the eligibility of which there's some question marks with the share class construct. The other one would be commercial. The commercial consideration of having now a TER ETF, which is essentially a fee cap model applied to your ETF. Where does that sit in relationship to your institutional share class and your retail share class? A commercial consideration versus all the other share classes that you have in that fund construct. There's also operational considerations as well as legal. In terms of that specificity that comes with the ETF, the flow of the portfolio composition file, integrating that into your operational model, it is not insurmountable, but can be challenging. And when you put them all together, it makes it challenging for investors looking to launch a share class. You might sit there and say, perhaps the white label is an easier route to market. We covered earlier, we expect to see more white label launches of ETFs. I think that's one of the reasons why, is that just the ease of access, that plug and play nature to the white label, and even the standalone solutions can be a cleaner model. It removes the tax considerations, is a separation from your existing infrastructure, and it is a viable option. We've seen launches in the ETF share class, some with success, some groundbreaking in terms of bringing new constructs to markets, likes of a CLO ETF, the first came via an ETF share class. But coming back to the prediction, it is maybe more challenging than some would anticipate, and not the panacea that maybe some have anticipated.
And adding what is a new piece of ETF technology, if you like, onto a legacy mutual fund, it can be a real challenge. And the actual cost to set up your own new ETF platforms are not significant. And therefore, that's why I think we're seeing many people just choosing to go on the simpler, more straightforward route.
Absolutely, and it goes back to the other prediction we have in terms of that adoption of the white label. That plug and play nature to the white label can be attractive for some, and maybe a cleaner route to market than the share class.